All right, so today we're going deep on Kabbalah, but not the celebrity kind you might see.
Okay.
We're talking about Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag,
Interesting.
a 20th century figure who really changed how we study Kabbalah.
Really shook things up.
Exactly.
Mm.
He was really focused on Jewish mysticism.
Yeah. Rabbi Ashlag was a fascinating guy. He believed that these teachings of Kabbalah were really important.
Yeah.
They shouldn't just be kept secret.
Right.
Hidden away, you know?
In old libraries.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he felt like they held the key to some of humanity's, like, big problems.
Okay.
And he wanted to make them something that everyone could access.
That's pretty revolutionary when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a tradition that's known for being very secretive. So how did he actually do that?
Yeah, what makes his approach so unique?
Well, for this deep dive, we're looking at a book called Iniciación a la Kabbalah by Rabbi Philip S. Berg. And this book actually exists because of an anonymous benefactor.
Wow.
And the editor, Karen.
That's great.
Does that.
So before we get into, like, his methods, it might be helpful to just define Kabbalah.
Okay.
You know what it actually is.
Yeah.
The word itself means the wisdom of the hidden.
Right.
Which, you know, kind of gives it that air of mystery, right?
Yeah, so we have, like, hidden wisdom.
Right.
A tradition that's known for being secret. And then we have Rabbi Ashlag saying, hey, everyone, let's talk about Kabbalah.
Exactly. That's a huge shift.
Huge shift. How did people react?
Yeah. Well, you can imagine it was a mix of both. Like, you know, for centuries, Kabbalah was really reserved for a select few.
Okay.
People who had studied a lot, who had that, like, spiritual preparation.
Okay.
And there was a real fear that, you know, if this knowledge got into the wrong hands, it could be dangerous, could be misused.
It's interesting because, like, that's like a very relevant dilemma today.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even outside of Kabbalah. You know, we think about the internet.
Oh, totally.
So much information.
Yeah.
But also misinformation.
Right.
Things that could be harmful.
Absolutely.
And it's like, we're asking that same question.
Yeah.
How do we balance the benefits of knowledge with the risks?
It's a question that there's no easy answers to.
Right.
And it's one that Rabbi Ashlag was dealing with throughout his life.
Yeah.
You know, he ultimately felt like the potential for good was bigger than the risk.
Okay.
You know, he believed that Kabbalah had the potential, not just for personal transformation, but like societal transformation.
Wow. Okay, so tell us more about Rabbi Ashlag.
Yeah.
Who was he?
Like, who was this guy who decided to open up the world of Kabbalah?
Yeah.
Well, Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, he was born in 1886.
Okay.
Passed away in 1955. And he dedicated his life to demystifying Kabbalah.
Okay.
He wasn't just, like, reading these old texts.
Right.
He was translating them, commenting on them.
Yeah.
Trying to make them understandable for people who hadn't, you know, spent years in the tradition.
Okay. He focused on the Zohar, right?
Yeah, a lot of his work was focused on the Zohar.
Could you give us a little background for the listener who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so think of the Zohar as, like, the heart of Kabbalah.
Okay.
It's this really complex, mystical commentary on the Torah.
Okay.
It's written in Aramaic.
Okay.
And it's considered to hold some of the deepest secrets of Jewish mysticism.
Wow.
So Rabbi Ashlag spent years translating it, interpreting it, making it accessible.
Okay.
Right.
So making it understandable.
Yeah.
But was he also trying to change the core teachings?
Well, that's an important point.
Yeah.
His aim was to make these teachings accessible, not to change them. He wasn't trying to create, like, a Kabbalah light.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
He believed that everyone could benefit from the teachings if they were presented clearly in an engaging way.
Okay.
And one of his big works, the study of the 10 luminous emanations, that's a great example of this.
Okay.
It's him trying to present a framework for understanding the core concepts of Kabbalah.
Oh, okay.
And it almost reads like a scientific text.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Scientific. So was Rabbi Ashlag influenced at all by the scientific advancements of his time?
Absolutely.
Right.
He was born at a time when the world was, like, rapidly changing. New scientific discoveries. They were changing how people thought about things.
Yeah.
And he saw a connection between the pursuit of knowledge in, like, the lab and the pursuit of spiritual understanding through Kabbalah.
Okay, so he saw these two seemingly disparate fields, science and mysticism, as being complementary.
Precisely. And there's this great anecdote about one of his students who had a mystical vision.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So the student was expecting something big, like dramatic, like the prophets in the Bible with the burning bush and all that.
Right.
But his vision was way more subtle, much more internal. Yeah. And at first he was kind of bummed out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he thought he messed up.
Like he was expecting this huge fireworks show.
Yeah.
And he got like a little candle.
Totally.
What did Rabbi Ashlag think about this?
Well, Rabbi Ashlag said, no, you didn't fail.
Okay.
This isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
He saw it as like how our understanding changes, like things evolve.
Right.
And he thought that this student's experience was a sign that even mystical experiences were changing.
Wow.
As the world changed. It wasn't about these big, flashy spectacles anymore.
Right.
It was about a deeper, more subtle understanding.
Okay, so how does this tie back into the idea of Kabbalah and science kind of working together?
Just like science was revealing all these intricacies of the physical world.
Right.
Rabbi Ashlag thought Kabbalah could help us understand the spiritual side of reality.
Okay.
So it wasn't about replacing one with the other. They both had something valuable to offer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But even with Rabbi Ashlag's efforts, Kabbalah can be really hard to get into.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty dense and difficult, right?
Absolutely.
What makes it so challenging?
Well, you got to remember, this tradition has been around for centuries.
Right.
And it has its own language full of symbolism and metaphors.
Right.
It's not exactly light reading.
Yeah. I imagine it's kind of like trying to learn advanced physics or philosophy.
Absolutely.
You can't just kind of skim the surface.
Yeah, you can't just skim it.
You have to really engage with it.
Yeah. Rabbi Ashlag believed that understanding came from actively working with the text, not just blindly accepting it.
So not just memorize.
No. Like really wrestle with it.
Yeah.
Question it.
Yeah.
Find your own meaning.
He wanted people to like internalize the wisdom.
Yeah, not just like memorize the concepts, but really apply them.
Apply them to your life.
Yeah, to life, to experience.
So it wasn't enough to just like understand it intellectually.
Exactly. You had to connect it to your own life.
Make it real for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So speaking of the world, how has Rabbi Ashlag's work influenced how people study Kabbalah today?
Well, Kabbalah has become really popular lately.
Yeah, it's kind of trendy.
Yeah.
Which can sometimes mean that it gets oversimplified.
Right. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Rabbi Ashlag definitely made it more accessible. But there's always a risk when you bring something like this into the mainstream. The challenge is like keeping the heart of the tradition while making it relevant.
Yeah, how do we do that?
It's a big question.
How do we make sure these teachings don't just become sound bites?
Right, like Instagram captions.
Exactly, yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot between accessibility and authenticity.
Okay.
And I think by looking at how Rabbi Ashlag did it, focusing on clear explanations, practical application, maybe we can find a way to engage with Kabbalah that honors its depth while also making it something real for people today.
Okay, so let's just do a quick recap of what we've learned about Rabbi Ashlag.
Okay.
So he dedicated his life to making Kabbalah accessible. Right. He translated these complex texts like the Zohar. He believed that science and mysticism could work together.
Right.
And he emphasized that you have to actually live these teachings.
Absolutely.
Not just think about them.
It's a way of life.
Right.
Not just an intellectual pursuit.
Okay. And so a thought for our listener to consider.
Okay.
We live in a world that can feel very chaotic.
Yeah.
Disconnected. Do you think that exploring these ancient teachings, maybe through Rabbi Ashlag's work, could help us deal with the complexities of modern life?
Well, Rabbi Ashlag saw Kabbalah as a guide to a more harmonious world.
Okay.
One where we're fulfilled as individuals.
Right.
And also good for society as a whole.
Yeah.
So maybe it's worth thinking about how these teachings can help us find meaning, connection, purpose.
In a world that often feels like it's missing those things.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about making Kabbalah more accessible.
Yeah.
But what about like actually using it?
Right. Like how do you live these ideas?
Yeah. Is it just about understanding or is there a way to put it into practice?
That's a really good question. And it gets to like the core of what Rabbi Ashlag believed.
Okay.
For him, it wasn't just something you think about. It's about how you live your life.
Okay, so it's not enough to just read about it.
Yeah, you got to do it.
But what does that even look like?
Well, one of the big ideas is tikkun olam, which means repairing the world.
Right.
Rabbi Ashlag saw Kabbalah as like a guide for how we can actually repair the world.
So like fixing things on a personal level?
Yeah, and a societal level.
So how do you repair the world with Kabbalah?
Well, it's less about like rituals or specific things you do. It's more about like who you are, how you are in the world.
Right.
Rabbi Ashlag talked about living ethically, acting with compassion, and always trying to connect with that like spark of the divine in ourselves and in others.
And he believed that.
Yeah.
When we do that, we can help make the world better.
Exactly. It's not just about thinking good thoughts. You have to act.
Right. Like there's an intentionality to it.
Totally. Rabbi Ashlag saw it as a tool to transform ourselves and society.
He believed that.
Yeah.
If we can understand the deeper stuff,
like those spiritual principles,
you can start making better choices.
Exactly. Choices that lead to a better life.
Right. A more fulfilling life.
And a more just world for everyone.
Well, this has been really fascinating.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
We've learned so much about Rabbi Ashlag, his work making Kabbalah accessible.
Right. Making it something that everyone can learn from.
The connection he saw between science and mysticism.
Yeah.
And how he emphasized that you have to actually live these teachings.
It's not just theory, it's practice.
Exactly.
And his work is still so relevant today.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
On this deep dive into the world of Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag and his work to open up the gates of Kabbalah.
Yeah.
We hope this has sparked your curiosity.
Yeah, maybe even inspired you.
Yeah, to explore these ancient teachings. Who knows what you might discover as you start your own journey into this tradition.
It's a fascinating one.
Thanks for listening.